And welcome to the SpartanMag.com VCast. Second time today, Paul. We did a recruiting one over at Spartan Stadium earlier. You can go check that out here on the YouTube channel. Give us a like, subscribe to this channel. We appreciate that. Breslin Center tonight, Michigan State. Middle of December, heading toward the holidays. Spartans win 67-54. Michigan State looked good, then they looked bad. Then they looked good, then they kind of took a snooze. Oakland, they were a good sparring partner, doing what they could. Kampe and Izzo wearing ugly sweaters. They were entertaining. Really close to a capacity crowd today, which is common for Michigan State during Christmas through the Izzo era. That's a great part of the tradition here, because you have a lot of Michigan State fans from all over the country that are back in Michigan for Christmas. It's a time for them to come out and check out the Spartans, people that live out of state. Festive atmosphere. Michigan State played about 22 good minutes tonight, Paul.
Yeah, and I mean, if you look at it, I expected this. I mean, I wrote as much earlier in my three things to watch. This is an ugly game. Michigan State is always ugly in these games. There's always times where they look like they're on the verge of blowing them out. Oakland always hits a couple late threes. Oakland knows how to play Michigan State. The weird thing about Greg Kampe is he does a lot of different things. He throws a lot of different crap on the wall, and it's hard to prepare for. Like, you and I were both watching their defense in the first half, and obviously Michigan State wanted to get the ball inside to Mady Sissoko, when he was in the game. But the way they're playing it, the way they play that zone and stuff like that, it makes it tricky. It's like for I don't know how. Most guys couldn't handle it. Joey Hauser, he fogged out a few times when he was trying to drive, and Mady had a couple turnovers, and it's just awkward. It's like throwing tacks in the road. That's what they're doing. And but within this ugly sweater game, there was some good things that we saw. We saw Jaden Akins take a step. As a dude that filled it up in transition. You looked at Michigan State. They just came out of the gates. Scored 12 out of the first 20 points in the second half in transition. And, at that point, after that first 5 minutes, first 10 minutes, Michigan State had a 24-2 in transition in fast break buckets. And some of the stuff I don't think was counted in that because it was trailer type stuff. And sometimes that doesn't always figure in as fast break points. But you saw Jaden Akins hitting threes. You saw Joey Hauser as a trailer on the break. You saw Tyson Walker, who struggled, going 2 for 8 in his first in the first half. You saw him knocking down shots, and those are all things that travel. You saw Mady Sissoko tonight rebound as well as we've seen him, two-hand rebound, go up and get some tough, tough balls. He also made some tough contests where he looked like he was out of position. He looked a little bit fresher, but Jaden Akins, that was a big deal. And then Joey Hauser continues to play well. So there's some good things, and then it was also wonky because of the whole Pierre Brooks fiasco, him being late for some meetings or whatever. Izzo said things, but I'm assuming whatever that means, late. And it's a disappointment because this is a second-year guy who did some things in that first 12 games, the first month of the season, where he looked like at times the light was flickering towards going on, looked like he was making some progress, and I really wanted to see what he looked like in this game, because there were times where you could see him trying to do the right thing on defense even when he was tired. You could see him trying to make the right play on offense. And tonight, he took himself right out of the game with those meeting issues. And then when he got a chance to come into the game, he was completely disinterested, like he was gone for the holiday break.
Well, I would say that he chose to be disinterested. He looked out of kilter.
And maybe some of that has to do with the fact that he wasn't used to that crappy zone that Oakland was playing.
He threw a couple of bad turnovers, or a couple of bad passes. One ended up being a turnover. The other one was just kind of sloppy. So he never got comfortable. He played 12 minutes, 0 for 1, missed a couple of free throws, had a turnover. And you're right, it's a chance. This is the time of the year. Malik Hall is going to be coming back and taking some minutes.
Jaden Akins getting better, so Pierre Brooks, you better be ready, and you better be playing your best ball, and you better be accountable. Right now, there's no excuse for lack of accountability, and you should see that coming.
I mean, this is a game against Oakland, against a weaker opponent, where Brooks needed to come out, play 26 minutes, score 17 points, and just help his averages and get some confidence going. Instead, he's benched for the first half because of missing a meeting. Those minutes are going to be evaporating pretty soon, and Izzo's been on him for a long time. You need to wake up because it's going to get tight. And it's not he's not being defiant. He's not being like a negative head case or anything, but he needs to snap to attention because he can shoot. but there's a version of Pierre Brooks that Izzo wants to have for the second half of the season and needs to have, and no one's really sure if that's going to come around or not.
Yeah, and I mean, this is a game you really kind of needed him to be that version of himself, because like it threw Michigan State completely off. You're playing a weird zone that you're not used to playing, and you've got multiple non-shooters on the floor. You're looking at Trey Holloman's playing a point, and then you've got
and they backed way off of him. They backed way off of Whitens.
So you got Jason. There's one stretch in there where you've got Trey Holloman's at the point, you've got Jason Whitens and AJ Hoggard as your wings, and that's not going to work against that zone. Akins
had a really good night, but he shot an air ball. Whitens shot an air ball. They backed off of Whitens. Hoggard's still not getting guarded. So Oakland did a good job of scouting report and that defense. It was a 2-3 zone. They changed to it like about maybe 6 minutes into the first half, if I remember right. It was 2-3 zone. Next trip, it looked like a 3-2 zone. The next time, it looked like a Jerry Tarkanian amoeba zone. Then there was one time, I'm like, what the hell kind of zone is this, Paul? And then the next time, they were pressuring the ball, one guy man-to-man, and they had a defender at the free throw line, like a one-man zone. And by the time it was over, but I'm not watching on TV. I wanted to rewind it to see what the other three guys were doing. Yeah, the other three guys, I don't know if they were in a triangle or if they were man-to-man, but it was a mess. And like Izzo said, they said what I said. I said, I'm not sure what they're doing. And Izzo said, it was kind of funny. He said, I'm not sure Kampe knew what they were doing either. But it was enough because you couldn't drive against it because you didn't know where the help guy was coming from. And it changed from possession to possession. It threw Michigan State off. They started driving, turning it over, and ended up with about 8 or 9 turnovers in the first half, 17 for the game. Next thing you know, Michigan State's behind. They rally. They take about a 5-point lead at halftime, and they come out strong, shooting the ball in the second half for a little bit. But you could tell that Michigan State worked on their transition game. They had no transition game in November, December for obvious reasons. You can tell they worked on it because, first of all, Oakland did a good job getting back on defense for good portions of the first half. But early in the second half, Michigan State found some cracks. And all that Michigan State was doing was getting into their structure and sprinting to spots, and people were finding them. Right. And when you do that with guys like Hauser and Akins, you can start rolling up some points, and Walker, which is what they did with. First time we've seen that all year. They're going to have some semblance of a transition game at some point this year. You can tell they've worked on it, something they didn't have previously. That was interesting. It wasn't great, but they got the model off the ground a little bit.
It's as good as those stretches, even in the first half. I wrote this just a bit ago. Michigan State had 12 transition buckets or points in the first half. I didn't really notice that per se. I noticed them getting a lot of open looks. And, it didn't work out. Guys were missing shots. But that trio that we just talked about, Akins, Hauser, and Walker, they started out 9 for 12 to start the second half. And that's when Michigan State built that 20-point lead. And
it's pretty there for a second.
And those guys, I mean, I didn't feel like the ball was humming up the floor. I just felt like the guys, like you were saying, those guys were sprinting to spots, and they were getting the ball to them on time. But this wasn't like a vintage Michigan State, fast break like a Cassius Winston style. But
it didn't seem fast, but it was effective.
But I will give the wings. The wings seem faster than we're used to seeing, and I think that has to do with Akins being a little bit back now. I think with him sprinting like that, I think it shows that his conditioning isn't all the way back. And I thought other guys, because they've been practicing, but they're not in game shape right now. I think there were some times where guys looked a little bit winded and slow, but that's going to happen when you don't have Pierre Brooks playing and you have Joey Hauser matched up on a guy like Townsend who's going to try to drive him and stuff like that. That's not ideal. So
yeah, in Oakland, they got some drives to the rim. They were doing a lot of dribble handoff offense and getting guys sprung loose to the rim. And Izzo was frustrated. He said he changed his offense after the Boise State game, most recent game. I'm not sure what it was, but but Michigan State was giving up some avenues to the rim, and Oakland was getting open shots and missing them. And Izzo says Akins, he's a very good defender, but he's not there yet because he's still coming back from that injury. And that was one thing that could help stop some of those stop some of those leaks on that dribble handoff offense that Oakland was running. It's a good thing for Michigan State that Oakland wasn't hitting shots, and they've not been a good shooting team this year. Meanwhile, Joey Hauser 4 of 5 from 3, Akins 3 of 4 from three-pointer. Without those two guys, this game gets a little bit tight.
Yeah, and then Walker in the second half, he wasn't there. He wasn't good in the first half, going 2 for 8, but he started out going 2 for 3 in that
a couple of threes
second half
during that run. Yeah,
and so. It kind of doesn't surprise me sometimes with him. I think after a long layoff, I think you're going to see the Tyson Walker that we saw for most of the first half. I mean, but I'm really curious to see what happens next. Like we talk about the holiday break as being a growth period for Michigan State, and it traditionally has. But I feel like the first game after finals, which this is often a big disappointment. You and I talk in these recasts about what these guys are working at, what we've seen traditionally. What we see traditionally happens over the span of two to three games, and then it really shows up in Big Ten play. This is the first one they've been in the practice gym. So what they've been practicing, the practice gym doesn't always come to full bloom in this first game. A lot of times it is ugly, and a lot of times it's not what people want to see, and then there's kind of a panic, not a panic, but fans are like, well, what are these guys working at? And then lo and behold, once Big Ten play rolls around, you'll see the guys take another jump, and they'll need to, because Nebraska is a weird team.
Well, tonight Michigan State, you can see they worked on a couple things. There was like a short corner, like a double entry pass type of thing when it ended up going Hauser at the free throw line down to Hogard, who's been posting up a little bit this year. But they got to Hogard kind of at mid-post for the purpose of throwing the lob to Sissoko. That was kind of near. That looked okay. And there were times when Michigan State tried to work on things. They tried to establish Madison Sissoko like the first possession of the second half or coming out of a timeout. They want to try to establish some interior for later in the year because they've gotten away from that. They want something down there. And when Kohler came in, there were a few times when they tried to go to him and get him to work on things. He's got a lot of good touch. It's not there yet for him. I think that is coming. Izzo chewed him out for something tonight, and Izzo also chewed out Sissoko. Izzo was always very reluctant to yell at Sissoko while Sissoko was getting accustomed to the language and everything. But now that Sissoko's got the language down, now Izzo's getting on him. You can tell when Izzo, kind of like builds towards something. So it's a wake-up call for these guys. Izzo, like I said, he's got a vision for a lot of these guys. And Izzo, hits that gas pedal, then he comes off of it, then he hits the gas pedal. He's working these guys, and they're going to need Sissoko and Kohler to be back to the basket threats. I'm not saying they're going to be Drew Timme or anything, but you need some balance, and those guys are work in progress projects also.
Yeah, I feel like when you're seeing Kohler, the game still hasn't slowed down for him. He's got great post moves, and but the way he's practiced post moves throughout his life have been in, I'm not going to say in a vacuum, but it's different when you're doing it in games. And I feel like when he gets the ball in the post, the first thing in his mind, you can see the wheels turning, the squirrels on the wheel. He's thinking about, are they going to double me? And so instead of thinking about, feeling his way into where that defender is and going through his post move, he's worried about someone digging down on him, or he's worried about the defense collapsing, like what happened against, a couple games earlier this year, and I forget who it was that doubled the post on him.
Was it Villanova?
Yeah, Villanova. You wouldn't expect Villanova to double the post on him, but they did, knowing he'd turn the ball over, and we've seen that from him a few times.
I like his demeanor.
Yeah,
he's a puppy.
I do,
and he's trying to learn.
I like him too. I think sometimes he's a little bit high strung and amped up. I think sometimes he spazzes a little bit. He's got to learn to let things slow down.
He has such good muscle memory with those moves that sometimes he's doing them too fast. It looks like.
He speeds himself up, and then I feel
he has good touch. We just haven't seen it yet.
And then the other thing is when he gets pushed off his spot, he's never had that before, right? He's never had people that are stronger than him pushing him off his spot. So if you're not in that spot on the floor where he's used to making all those thousands of reps he's done in the gym, it's a completely different thing. So you're wondering, a lot of times people out there, and I've had people text me and say, why are these post moves that look pretty good coming off his hand, why are they front rimming? Why is he short on everything? It's because he's not shooting from the same spots, and that's something that seasoned big men get comfortable doing, and you adjust your shot strength, and it's a nuanced thing.
And that schedule was so demanding. It was hard for him to go back and work on his game and find a comfort level and a rhythm and his timing.
So the thing that he was getting yelled at tonight, what I felt like was Oakland was doing a nice job pulling him out onto the perimeter and making him defend on the perimeter, and they're trying to get some threes over him. Oakland does that. There's always either whether it's a 4-man or the 5-man, there's always a big man getting exploited in that, being forced to move his feet on the perimeter. And I feel like they were going after Jackson Kohler tonight a little bit.
What'd you think about the sweaters? It's colorful. It's nice to see two coaches that have been around each other for so long and get along with each other and have fun. That's good for basketball.
Well, that's Greg Kampe's thing, man. I mean, he went like big time back in the day with the 3D reindeer sweater. The one that came out the front and out the back. Remember that? Like it was
I forgot about that.
2016,
yeah,
2015, where he was like got himself on Sports Center and stuff like that.
Yeah, it protruded from his shirt,
it's a
right?
3D sports sweater. He had the butt of the reindeer coming out the back, and then he had the antlers. So that was like you can't top that. So that was mad reindeer game, and I think Greg Kampe was trying to up the ante this year by getting Tom Izzo to wear one. The funny thing about Tom Izzo wearing a sweater is, it's not him first off, but then of course he's going to get teed up wearing the most ridiculous sweater that
as an elf. It's an elf shirt too.
Or is it a Who shirt?
I don't know. I thought it looked to me like he was an elf.
Greg Kampe was having fun with it, talking about how he wanted to make all the little Who's feel, go home sad and whatnot. And he had his typical Greg Kampe gruffness, blaming officials for missed calls on blocked shots. You know how Greg Kampe is. Like he's never lost a game. He's just been out-officialed in these games. But Greg Kampe wants to win one of these.
And Izzo knows
he might retire
afterwards. I don't know. The only thing Izzo needed was that hat that Will Ferrell had in the Elf movie. That would have been great for Izzo to wear that tonight. So Rocket Watts was back tonight. I forgot to pay attention when he was introduced, but Izzo said it was really good. A lot of you that were here, you probably heard it. But Izzo said he was actually moved by it because he called upon Michigan State fans to give him a warm, classy welcome, and Izzo was happy for Rocket that Michigan State fans did that, and Izzo was happy for Michigan State fans that Michigan State fans were the way they are, which is classy, and that's the way Izzo wants it. So Izzo can have a happy Christmas about that.
It's a good deal. I'm happy for that. I'm happy that Michigan State fans, like last year when Michigan State was playing Davidson, I felt like they were classy towards Foster Lawyer after maybe not being as classy like when he was here. I think, of course, we're scrambling.
The people here are classy. It's the people on the phones,
right, exactly.
That tweet at Foster Lawyer. Those are the ones that need a lesson.
Or the people that are gambling and see their point spreads affected and whatnot. Yeah. And like Foster Lawyer, through no fault of his own, he physically was not a good fit for this program. He's a great fit for Davidson and what they do, and I'm glad that he's found his niche. Rocket Watts, I feel kind of conflicted about him. I'm glad that the fans, treated him well. I feel really bad to some extent that his game has not developed to the point where he can take advantage of his God-given ability. He is not a Jaden Akins or an A.J. Hogard or Tyson Walker kind of guy that's going to create for himself and others with the ball in his hand. He needs to be, he's not an above-the-rim player. And you saw that tonight. There's some pretty pronounced block shots where he was going up. He's not a guy that plays he can't go up and dunk it two hands with ferocity. So he's going to be a guy that's a layup guy, going in, floating, dribbling too much. And Kampe said as much afterwards, and I give Kampe credit, for the tough love approach with Rocket Watts. Now, I don't know if it's going to work at this point. Will it? This is Rocket Watts' last chance, but he needs to learn to move on and kind of develop his game. So if he wants to make money off basketball in Europe, or take that next step in his development, that he can do that. I really feel like bad that a guy that has, in some ways, a lot of ability has never been pushed outside his comfort zone, to kind of develop his game, and that's a disservice to him. So I feel good for him being back here, but I really wish I would have seen him grow a little bit more.
And I agree with what Izzo said a couple days ago, and this is something that me and Big Mooby talked about. We were on the phone a lot, during the pandemic, and everybody's at home and stuff. And I remember just saying, in that year, April and May and June and July, I said to Ron a number of times, I'm like, man, back then I said Rocket Watts needs to be on campus right now. I mean, for that guy, he had just played his freshman year. It was up and down. He was part of the Big Ten championship, and then he's forced to go home. He didn't need to be home. He needed to be here, like all Michigan State between freshman and sophomore year, especially when he was going to be changing to become the point guard. I'm not sure how different he would have been. Izzo thinks it would have been a lot different. But I remember saying back then I was concerned about him more than any scholarship athlete in the entire campus on the program and the whole athletic department. I was concerned about Rocket Watts during that pandemic, and it turned out to be a lost several months, for him, for everybody, but for him, tough timing for him on that.
Do you feel like he could have been the point guard? I personally don't.
No,
I mean, and I don't want to say that in a negative way.
I saw Charlie Bell become one,
but Charlie Bell's a different,
different personality.
Charlie Bell had his background was different though too. I mean, he's the guy that did whatever he had to do in high school, played whatever role he had to do, and he was like scrapper, and it was like slashing type stuff, and he didn't
have as much on him to do everything. He just kind of
and that was tough. I mean, that's a really tough thing for Rocket Watch. You've got all you go back and look at that team he played on his freshman year. There was actually a lot of talent on that team around.
When they won the Big Ten.
Yeah, there's a lot of that was
Winston's senior year.
That was a good team. That was a really good team, and he didn't have the pressure, But you think we've seen a lot of guys over the years come out, like Chris Allen is an example of that, a dude that came out of Georgia, and another guy that, as good a shooter as he was, everything was off the bounce because he'd never done any catch and shoot stuff. That's why I say I feel bad for someone, because that stuff is just like basic fundamental basketball, and it's kind of sad, at least from my perspective, that some guys don't get pushed to develop that.
All right, ready to wrap it up? It's been a long day. Appreciate Paul and all the work he's done, and all the maggers out there watching us throughout signing day. Jason Killip, Noah Sprunger, Jake Laskowa, and everybody helping out at SpartanMag.com, and all the maggers. We appreciate those. And if you're not a magger, go over to SpartanMag.com. $1. Subscribe now through August 31st. We'd love to have you over there. Give us a like here. Go over to SpartanMag.com. Become a SpartanMag.com subscriber. Love to see you over there. For Paul Konyndyk, my name is Jim Comparoni. You've been watching the VCast from the Breslin Center in East Lansing with the Spartans for SpartanMag.com.